Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. In this video we're going to be setting up our foliage using our landscape shader. This is a part of the Game World Landscape Shader series, which is within the BWV2 series as a whole. And essentially over the past few videos we have been building up a landscape shader that looks like this. In the last video we set up the biomes, so we've got a forest biome, and off camera I added an Arctic biome. I did the Arctic biome the exact same way as we did the forest biome, and I've used reroute declaration nodes to apply my slope layers to each biome as well as the auto material. What I want to do in this video, like I say, is to showcase how to set up the foliage, which is going to be powered by the functions that we've used in this series as a whole, creating this landscape shader. If you're new here and you've not watched the series as a whole, I'd recommend doing so, and you'll come up with a decent landscape shader like this, which is looking like this up to now. It's quite decent, and like I say, I want to showcase how we're going to apply logic through our auto material using the functions that we've already used. Your landscape shader may be different. Like I say, if you're new to this channel or new to this video, your functions may be different, but the concepts that we're going to be utilizing should be the same for any landscape shader that you've created. So yeah, I will do my best to try and showcase for the guys and girls who have not been following the series along, but I would recommend that you do if you want a decent landscape shader that's quite cheap to run. So yeah, let's get started. So the first thing that we want to do for applying any type of foliage to a landscape shader is use a node called a landscape grass output node, which is this one here. It's a landscape grass output node. As you can see in the details panel, it's powered by a landscape grass type file, which I'll showcase a little bit later on. Also, you have a name above there, which is just called grass, which is there. As you can see, grass. You can pretty much call this what you want. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to leave it as grass. But yeah, what I'm going to do is start with building up a folder structure. I'm just going to put it in the landscape folder, not the landscape shader folder, where I've got my alpha brushes and runtime virtual textures. Just going to right click in here, new folder, and we'll call this landscape underscore foliage. Good if I spell it right, like so. We can open this up. I'm going to right click and go to the foliage category, and you should be seeing landscape grass type. Click on that, and I could go LGT for landscape grass type, and we could call this foliage underscore test. This is just testing purposes. You can also duplicate this and rename it and all that good stuff, but for now we'll just leave it like this, and we can simply drag that into the grass type here, which is attached to this node, and we can leave it like that. What we want to do now is open it, and in your landscape grass type file you want to add an element in there. We've got an index of 0, and you can see we've got all our settings. I'm not going to be going through all the settings in this particular video, because I do have a couple more videos that I've done in the past that cover this kind of functionality, so feel free to check them videos out. I shall link them in the video when editing it, so yeah, link that out. The first changes I'm going to make though is to reduce this. I don't want it to kill my performance. I'll set this around 100 just for now. I may increase or decrease it later. The scale and the X and Y I'm going to set to 0.2 and 0.3, so they're not massive. What I am going to do though, guys, is use a cylinder. Anyone else in a tutorial would use foliage, but what I want to do after this particular video is to move on making a foliage shader. and there's no point in utilising foliage actors right now. I'll just utilise a cylinder for performance reasons. Also with performance in mind, I'm going to disable cast dynamic shadows and connect shadows, and that just, like I say, keeps the foliage in mind. I need to add the actor there now, so I'm going to come to the content drawer. I'm going to click on all and just type cylinder, just see why. And you'll see I get the engine version of a static mesh, which is a cylinder. I'm just going to click on that, left control and C. I'm going to make a copy of this. I don't want to utilise this or make changes to it in any mistaken way, and then it'll be broken for the whole engine. So I'm going to come to my build worlds. Let's go there. Go to research, go to landscape and landscape foliage, and I'll just left control and V, paste it in there. And what I want to do now is change the name, so I'm going to highlight it and press F2. I'll keep the SM and then cylinder underscore test, like so. And all I want to do, guys, is just to add that into the grass mesh, like so, and save it. We can actually close this down now, we don't need this, it's all set up. What I want to do first is showcase how to do it with a layer sample. So essentially, if we right click and get a landscape layer sample, which is there, essentially this layer sample is driven by your landscape paint section. So if I come to the main window and choose landscape mode, and now we're in landscape mode, I'm going to go to the paint tab, and you can see here I've got a main auto material, got the remove slopes, the forest floor biome and the Arctic snow biome. So essentially, let me just close this down. I go to landscape material, and then I can paint it down. If I say I choose this forest floor, I'm going to reduce that size, reduce the inclinations, or the fall off, should I say. I just click there, just let it build, compile the shaders. There we go. Let's give it one more click, so it's quite heavy there. That should be fine. So keep in mind that's our forest floor biome. If I come back to selection mode, and you'll see now I've got that forest floor biome which we created in the last video. I go here. If I just click on my layer blend node, you'll see I've got my forest floor biome. If I just highlight that, left control and C, make a copy. When using a landscape layer sample node like this, it's very important that the sample node matches the name of the particular layer that you want to utilize. That is one of the important things. And in the parameter name here, just left control and V, and that is going to be the exact same match as what is there in our landscape layer blend node, and we can just simply drag that into there. If I do that and hit apply, just give it a moment, come back here, and you can see now them cylinders are applying on that particular biome, which is powered by the landscape layer sample here. The downside to that is it will just spawn everywhere on there, so it's rare that I'm going to utilise that. If I'm utilising a particular paint layer, like if I'm using separate material layers like this, like a slow paint maybe, which goes straight into the layer blend node, then these can be quite powerful for that, with some logic in between, where you can derive the actual logic from that layer sample. But what I want to do is to utilise our auto material function to derive where our foliage is placed. So I'm going to remove that landscape layer sample node and hit apply again. That should remove that from our scene, like so. And what I'm going to do first is just quickly save it, like so. Okay, so like I say, I want to utilise the auto material in here. Like I said at the start of the video, guys, it's important that you followed this along so you understand where things are and what's going to be happening through this function. If you don't want to follow the series along, by the time the next video is out, I'm going to make a save and a spare project of this actual project for BWV2 as a whole, and put it up for sale if anyone is interested in purchasing it. But for now we'll just utilise what we know. We're going to open the auto landscape material. One thing I do want to utilise is our flat ground main, and essentially our flat ground main is this. Just let my engine catch up. There you go. Is what we're seeing on screen here, the dirt and the grass and the transition where you can see it. That's our flat ground main, and that's where we want our foliage to spawn. So what I need to do is utilise where we are working here. Our main focal point will be the flat ground mask, because we're going to utilise the mask that drives our flat grounds to create our landscape grass types to drive from. If you understand what I mean, got a little bit confused then. So essentially what we have here for our flat ground main is our main mask, which drives the dirt bit as a whole, and then we have a transition mask, which is this part here where we're transitioning from the dirt to the grass. It could be a little bit better set up, but that's for another time. But for now we're just going to utilise our mask to drive our foliage. And this section here, is what blends our masks together. So this is essentially our flat ground mask, and this is where we're blending them together. I did showcase this in another video earlier on in the series, so go and check it out. What I want to do is to utilise these endings here to drive an output. So I'll drive from that clamp contrast into an output, and I want the function output, not the tangent. Get the function output, and we could change this name to flat ground foliage. Spell it wrong again. Mask. I don't even think I spelled it right. Flat ground foliage mask. There we go. And now we've got our mask. We can drag this over here. We've got our material, and that's set priority as a 1 for our height. So this output is going to be a 2. What I want to do is actually utilise the transition and the mask. So if I hold A on the keyboard and left click, and just use that add node to add into that mask, and we can just simply drag from each cheap contrast from the transition and the mask itself into that foliage mask. Hit apply. And now I've just essentially exposed where we're going to run our mask from the foliage. So if I make a copy of that output, because in the flat ground main you can see here I've got my flat ground here, which is flat ground foliage mask, and this one here as well. And left click and Control and V, and I've got that output again. There's only 2, that's 0 and 1, and this should be a set priority of 2 as well. This is our main mask, which is our flat ground blending controls. This is our inner dirt layer, if you like. Oh, hang on a minute. No, we'll utilise this one. So simply I just drag out of there into the output, and now I furthermore expanded out through my flat ground main. You can see my flat ground main function, which is this. Once I hit apply, and just quickly save it, go back in here, you can see now I've got a flat ground foliage mask from my flat ground function. I can actually copy that again and utilise that in there. Simple. And hit apply and save. If I come back to my landscape material, you'll see I've got a flat ground foliage mask. If I drag that into my landscape grass output and hit apply. Now it's finished saving and compiling. Let's go and have a look. As you can see now, our foliage is applying all over our landscape, which is fine. So essentially where our masks are it's going to apply that foliage. And because it's from the flat ground main, which is included with our grass layer, it's just going to spawn everywhere, which is great. So yeah, that's that. As you can see now, it's applying all over our landscape, but primarily it's utilizing the masks for our flat ground, and you've got a minimal amount of spawnage on the grass, but mainly it's all over the masks, the actual dirt mask. To eradicate that, if you want to actually utilize the grass more, you can come to your material here, get a 1-, and you're just essentially flipping that mask. If I apply that in there, hit apply and let it compile, and then go back to the world, you'll see now that it is applying primarily on the grass. So essentially, if this is going to be your foliage like grass, then you're going to invert the mask, so you're not using the mask. You're using the flat ground mask, but you're inverting it, so you're telling the grass type not to spawn on the foliage mask, if that makes sense. But this, as you can see, is kind of what we're looking for. Like if I was to put a load of grass down on here, this is kind of what we're looking for. But you can see here, it's also spawning on slopes. If I remove my ocean template, this is a template for where my ocean is going to be. If I remove that, you'll see all the foliage is spawning down there as well. And that is not particularly what we want. You can see it's spawning on the slopes as well, and we don't want that. So now I am going to showcase how we can eradicate spawning down there. There's no point in foliage spawning underneath my ocean. It will just obviously take resources away from the actual game itself, so we want to reduce the amount of spawnage on under the water and on slopes, as naturally grass doesn't spawn. Naturally grass doesn't grow on rocks. So yeah, now we've got our flat ground mask, we can get rid of these. We've got it there. The first thing I want to do is to remove it from our slope. So if I open our slope detection logic here, and essentially this is the same as before. We have a slope and a transition slope. For these slopes, I'm not really fussed about transition because there'll be a blend anyway, but I'm going to drag off here and get an output and get function output. So for this, if you're using a different kind of slope detection, if I right click here and start previewing, you'll see this is our actual slope mask. So you may want to drive your output from here if you're not using like transitions and all that like we are here. You might just want to plug that straight into there or wherever you see fit. And like I said at the beginning, guys, I would highly recommend you watching the whole series and building the landscape shader itself. So for here, I'm going to call this slope foliage mask. The set priority, I've got a slope mask 0, the transition is a 1, so my foliage is going to be a 2. And now that should be in order, and that's our slope foliage mask. If I hit apply there, let's let that save. May want to calculate shaders and all that. Close my slope detection down, and you can see now I've got a slope foliage mask. Actually, I'll open it again and just copy this function, this output. We'll just paste it here, like so. So we've got our flat ground foliage mask and now our slope foliage mask. That set priority is 2, so I shall change this one from 2 to 3. Just hit apply and save, and then landscape material. And you can see we've got our slope foliage mask here. If I just drive this into the grass type and hit apply, and now that's built. Let's go check it out. As you can see here, the slope is, that's not right. Essentially this should be This should be just on the slopes, but it's not. Maybe actually if I invert it, like so, see what this does. I always like to stay on the screen when building, because if you're on the main window you've got to be rendering as well as compiling, and it takes longer. Let's have a look now. Yeah, so now our foliage would just be spawning on the slopes, as you can see with these cylinders, which are pretending to be grass. Now that is just spawning on slopes, which is showing me that the mask is working right. Going back to what problem we had before with the ground type, hit apply, come back here, you can see that it's spawning down there as well as the slopes. What I want to do is have my foliage starting around here, so it's not, if I come to like ocean template, like around here would be nice for my foliage to start spawning. So what I'm going to do here is utilise what we used with our snow caps, which is our height mask. So if I come here and I'll go to the content draw, we'll go landscape and landscape shader, functions, and you'll see I've got a height mask here. This was used in the snow caps function that we created a few videos ago, which is here. I'm going to utilise that inside my master material. So I'll just get that and drag the height mask up here, like so. Move that up there. What I want is 2 scalar parameters, like so. Let me change that name first. This could be foliage world height. Start, like so. I can just duplicate that and we'll call this foliage world height offset. So essentially the offset is what's going to blend or the transition of our height, and we can simply apply these in here, like so. For our offset, I'm going to start with something like 100, which is the, like I say, the transition, and I can just simply apply that into our grass types, like so. Not getting an error, that's great. If I hit apply now, depending on this height mask, let me open this height mask if you want to make one yourself. You'll see I've got, if you want to make it yourself, this is a height mask in which we control the height of world, in our world, to start or stop certain logics. So yeah, utilise that. If you have followed the series as a whole and you come to using this height mask that we created a few videos ago and you're getting error here when plugging it in, you're getting an error through here, that is simply because you need a preview here. So if you get both these inputs and use preview value, and then you could just put a constant 1 vector, hold 1 on the keyboard and left click, and just apply that to the preview inputs, and that essentially will stop that error. Just hit apply, make sure it's all saved correctly. We can save the mask and utilise it now in our landscape. If I look now in here, you'll see all the foliage is gone. Like I said, I need to get the world height. What I'll do first, guys, is I'll come here and I'll set the priority to a -10, and I'll call this foliage test. Right, so, and essentially these two now are going to be at the top of our material instance. I save that, come back to my world, content draw, go to the landscape shader and open the material instance, like so. Okay, where is it? on there, but the wait there. So if I come here and change the actual group name to -10 and hit apply, that should move it to the top, I think. Scrolling up, there you go. Now we've got our test up there. Let's just open these. Now essentially it wants a world height start, so that essentially is the height of where we want it to start. So if I click on this mannequin, you'll see it's got its little pivot here. I just need that value. So I'll come into my details panel for that particular mannequin. You can utilise a mannequin to get a particular world height. I'm going to lower it a little bit, like so. And you'll see in the transform section, we've got a location, we've got X, Y and Z. We need that Z value, so I'm going to click on it, left Control and C and make a copy. And just simply in the foliage world height start, left Control and V and apply that world height. And there you'll see our foliage is starting at this level where I started the world height. So if I drag that under here now and I reduce this, oh that's the wrong way, let's reduce it this way, you'll see it just keeps moving down until I set a particular height that I want it to spawn at. If I go higher, it's going to eradicate, but if I go over here, you'll see it's starting at this world height here. So now we can rectify, let's go this way, it's a little bit too high, low, sorry, so I'll increase that a little touch more, and I'll just start it there. If I bring in my ocean template, that's about right, but the main thing is that below the water there's no foliage spawning, so you're saving on a lot of performance there by that simple bit of logic. Okay, so that's that. What I want to do now is to put all this together so we can have our foliage spawning in a particular areas and at particular heights and all that good stuff. So I'll come back to my landscape shader, hit save there. I'll just drag this up here for now, I can always drag it down later. And I want to utilise this height mask and the flat ground mask and foliage masks and put them all together so it spawns in the places I want. So the first thing I want to do is to get a subtract node, and I shall add that subtract node in there and in there, like so. And then the flat ground mask could just simply add that in there and then apply. Let's hope this works. Okay, let's have a look. So we can see now that I am subtracting away. What I shall do, because I'm already subtracting, I'll just drive that foliage mask straight in there without that inversion. Hit apply, let's save. Let's have a look. Okay, so now I've got my height. I remove the ocean template, I've got none down there. And we've also made it so it's just spawning on the grass. You can also, if you wanted stones, you can utilize this mask and put that there. So you came here and added a new index or a new grass type, and you could call this dirt layer, like so, maybe, and add a landscape grass type, and you could just plug that straight into there, and whatever grass type you put in here would then spawn. So you could essentially use a landscape grass type here and put like loads of rocks and twigs and all that good stuff into there, keep it separate, and that would spawn just in the dirt area here, which is pretty cool. What else? See slope mask as well, so if I back to the world, you'll see I'd have to lower it first. Let's lower it even more, like so. Oh wait, the wrong way. You'll see, let's get rid of that ocean template. You'll see it's still going down there. Let's just increase that a little bit, like so. But you can see now that it is just it's on our slope, so we can essentially do the same thing as well with our slope by duplicate this, add it in there, and in fact I'm going to add a saturate node here, and this will just clamp it so we're not going wild. We'll just plug that slope in there, and that goes into our grass like so. Let's keep it tidy, hit apply. This should technically work. It might not. There may be a case for a 1- to invert it. Let's have a look. Right, okay. So yeah, the foliage is just spawning on the slopes, which is cool. Let's invert it. If I get the slope into my 1-, and that can go into the subtract node, and delete that one. I don't need that dirt layer. That's just an example. Delete that. Hit apply and let it build. And we'll come back, and now you can see that it is not, well, it's trying its best not to spawn on the slopes. So if I decrease that world height, oh wait, the wrong way, you can see now it is just spawning in the grassy areas and not the dirt, and it's also not appearing on the slopes, which is particularly successful in my eyes. So I can increase that more. Let's get this back up to world height. I reckon around, let's bring our template back in. I reckon around here, it's fine. You're obviously going to get little bits here that are going to spawn on slopes. Well, that kind of thing can't be helped because that's actually on the transition and not the actual slope of here. But yeah. Okay, so that is just signifying how we're going to approach using foliage in the future on our particular auto material. We'll bring him back up like so, and that will do. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so now we've got our foliage spawning. That's essentially how the foliage would work through here. Over the course of the next few videos, I'm going to be creating a foliage shader in which we could just apply foliage to. I've pre-downloaded a few assets here. So here I've got the kite demo and the open world foliage, which has a load of foliage and textures in there. But I want to showcase how we can utilize our own landscape shader and use like PMCs and all that good stuff through the foliage and all that good stuff. So that brings us to the end of this video. That's essentially, like I say, how we're going to apply foliage to our landscape shader for our game world, which is BWV2. And there's a lot more you can do with this, guys. Like if you come into the forest biome, you'll see the work we put into the auto material, like with the slope detection and all that good stuff. That them slope foliage masks are already there, and all you have to do is to go in here and apply the same as we did, like here with these outputs. Just apply them in here, like so. You've got a flat ground foliage mask and a slope foliage mask, and then you could utilize them particular biomes. So you could add a new landscape grass type here and just have it like forest biome and just apply the masks the same as we have done here into that new biome through that landscape grass type, landscape grass output. Okay, so I believe that is it. This is how we're going to utilize our foliage in this particular shader. Like I say, in the next group of videos we're going to be creating a foliage material, so we can utilize all our foliage using the same sort of material, so we can reduce confusion and all that good stuff. Also, this project will be available in the next couple of weeks where you can purchase it if you want. to show your support to the channel and to myself. So yeah, keep that in mind, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye.